Hi everyone, I think we're on. I just wanted to come on here today to do a little recap of everything that we've been through so far and where do we go from here. So we all know we're in this together, and Mama Cricket was diagnosed with small cell lung cancer in February, so very rare form. And so she had her CT scan in the beginning of March, and in the middle of March she had the biopsy. And that was just to confirm what we already thought with the diagnosis. So with that, right away, we started naturopathic homeopathic treatment with the RSO oil, or Rick Simpson oil, which is a THC and CBD based blend, which we thought immediately, for a lot of reasons, would help. Being Oregon, it is accessible. So it relieves anxiety. So having cancer, that you're going to have a lot of stress. So Mama Cricket needed some calming down. And it's also going to calm the body. So it would boost her appetite. It relieves pain. It's an anti-inflammatory. But the main thing is that it reduces the spread of cancer cells. So obviously, with a natural treatment, that's something we wanted to administer right away, and it blocks the pathway of the energy that goes to the cells. So ultimately, what happens to the cells when they have no energy? They die. It's a gradual and slow destruction of the cells, but eventually necrosis. They die. So we started that right away. But because it can sometimes mess your head up, we went with the suppository way. So it'll completely bypass the brain, the lungs, and the liver. So therefore, it will just go straight into her bloodstream. She won't feel funny at all, and it'll go right to work in healing. So that was our number one way to attack this. And that was while we were waiting to be able to get in for the radiation. So then toward the end of March, we got in for the radiation. Now, her cancer was, imagine it like a big octopus. So there's a large body and then a whole bunch of appendages. So this large body had affixed herself to her aorta in her heart, around the main valve that connects the heart. So then all those appendages had wrapped themselves around and squeezed real tight. She didn't have a good prognosis in the beginning. If left untreated and she didn't do anything, she had a life expectancy of 2 to 4 months. This is why we all panicked. It was big time. And so we wanted to start that radiation right away because it's direct radiation. And if we know, we've heard the stories, radiation, it kills. Now, we didn't want it to kill her, obviously. We wanted to kill the cancer. So it's direct radiation, called beam radiation, where they shot a radiation beam directly at the center of that big octopus body, dead center, and it would slowly, again, the gradual destruction, because it would not be able to stay alive, of that main source. And as you saw in the PET scan photos, which we've now had two, you've seen that gradual reduction, and it was actually gradual, but it was mighty huge. It was huge from the beginning one that you saw to the middle one that we saw just a couple months ago. Well, the good thing is she has another PET scan coming up September, let me look at my paper, 28th, September 28th. So we will now get to see again for the third time where she stands in that thing that was attached to her aorta. Because of where it was inoperable. They couldn't operate and take the majority of it out. We had to attack it right away with that radiation, and we had no time. We had to do something, and we had to do it quick. So we've got the RSO, we've got the radiation going, and then it was a big controversy whether or not we were going to have her go through the chemotherapy. As you've heard, it's like this big scary monster that comes out and gets you. Everybody has all these terrible things to say about it, but we researched it thoroughly. We went with 2 particular chemotherapy drugs that probably would have had the best success rate out of any of them on this particular cancer that she had. So we decided that we should at least try a few treatments, because it was really, the radiation was taking care of that large growth, but there were still cells in her body. There were still cancer cells all over floating. And one of the main things that we were worried about is where they were going next. And if they were going to sit there and metastasize and grow a whole nother enemy. So we were really worried about that. We were worried about them taking the channel straight to the brain and growing in the brain. We were worried about them forming in the breast, the stomach, the liver, and the other lung, and things like that. So she's had several CT scans, as you know, have been noted in the group, to show that there hasn't been any metastasizing. All your prayers have been working, and we reach out to all our prayer warriors every single time to make sure that we're not having that regrowth of those cancer cells anywhere else. So we have the radiation attacking the main cause, the main enemy. And then we have all these tiny little enemies floating, which is where we said we got to do that chemotherapy, because we need those to go away. But the thing with chemotherapy is it wipes all your cells out, the good ones and those bad ones I'm talking about. So we ran a little bit of a risk with wiping her good cells. So we did that a few times. She had several treatments. We did a drug called carboplatin, and it's a platinum-based drug, and it's about 2% more than the regular to be more effective than a platinum-based chemotherapy. So we said, hey, 2%, we'll take that 2% too. We're really taking anything we can get. So she had 3 of those intravenously administered, so it was systematic through her whole body and her bloodstream, carboplatin, 3 of those, and that was over a 6-week period. And then the etoposide, she had 9. So that was the other drug, was an etoposide. Now the etoposide, again, was going to work to destroy all of good and bad cells. So they wanted her to go through a whole nother round. She went through 3 or 4 full rounds, and they wanted her to go through a whole nother round. But if you remember in the group, her cell counts and her numbers were way down. Now, we did not want them to get so far down that at that point, that could have killed her. We did not obviously want that to happen. So we were watching those numbers very, 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 very closely. And cells don't just grow overnight. It takes time for them to form, which again, that RSO oil helps to, it helps for the cells to regrow, to rejuvenate. So that's also a benefit of that. And a lot of the homeopathic things that we were doing with the chaga powder and the amla powder, those are huge in preparing an environment in your body that cancer doesn't want to live in. So chaga powder comes from a mushroom. You add it in, we were adding it into the shakes. You can add it into ways that you cook. You can we always throw it in chicken noodle soup. I was dumping all kinds of stuff in everything that she eats. And now she's doing that at home. She's dumping whatever she can in. She's now learned how to live so her body is in an environment that cancer doesn't want to live in. The same thing with the water that she was drinking and things like that, just the vitamins that she was taking. All this has been really, really, we've investigated, we've read about it, and it's not that we just throw it at her all at once. There's certain little stages where she needs certain things, and so we go toward those things, or she needs less of those things, and we go away from those things. So we did refuse her last chemotherapy altogether. Now, the doctor said he did not agree with us on that, but we refused it because we thought her numbers were too low. And I think that we made the right decision, and that was 4 etoposide treatments and 1 carboplatin, and we said no more. And so at that point, that's when we got the other PET scan, and we were able to see where we stood at that point. Now, it had shrank quite a bit, but it was not completely gone. So at this point, Now, the radiation oncologist says the radiation's still working. So even though she's now no longer receiving any more radiation treatments, she got 33 in total, but it's still working. It's still radiating. It's still in there somehow. That was when her insides felt like they were on fire. She said she felt like there was a burning in her chest. She was coughing up black, and which was part of the cancer dying and coming up. It was things like that, but it was the cancer dying. We were also told that her aortic valve was strong though, and that the radiation didn't damage that. So her heart is still healthy and can still sustain a long life. So we're banking on all that. Okay, so now we're at no more radiation, no more chemotherapy. What next? So at that point, that's where we moved on to immunotherapy. Now, she can't have any more radiation. It's been radiated to the point it can be. She can't have any more chemotherapy. So we're moving on to immunotherapy, which was just released in 2015. Fairly new, but a lot of clinical trials, a lot of good things. It can cure a lot of things, not just cancer. I mean, so it's definitely worth looking into just to know about it, because it is new and it's a breakthrough treatment, and it uses your own immune system to fight whatever is inside of your body that's not supposed to be there. So kind of in layman's terms, to imagine it, say you took a whole bunch of airborne, a ton, and it's going to protect you from all those germs out there because it's going to boost your immune system so you don't get them. Well, that is kind of what this was doing for her. This immunotherapy called Opdivo. And you've probably seen commercials on TV about it. Opdivo uses your own body's immune system to fight what is left of that enemy. And we thought that we were going to use it so much to just to kind of come in and sweep the floor and clean up everything that was left behind and say, all right, you're a scraggler and you're a scraggler and we're getting rid of you, so we're going to clean you all up and get you out of here. Well, one of the things with the immunotherapy is it gives a lot of energy. So, as you know, Mama Cricket, she don't sit down to begin with. So now she thinks she wants to paint the house. Yay. Now try to tell her no. Oh my goodness. So she won't sit down, and she doesn't take no for an answer. So it was really interesting trying to redirect her into other things to do other than building a moat, because she's a go girl. It was really, really quite interesting.